Hey there, welcome to School of Emo, the podcast where we dive into the world of emo, pop punk, and everything in between. If you've ever found yourself in your car screaming the lyrics to Taking Back Sunday, wearing way too much eyeliner in the early 2000s, adding a buckle or a chain to every outfit you've put on, you are in the right place. I'm Erin Judge, and each week I will be your fellow student, guiding you through the music, the culture, and the history that shaped an entire generation of angsty teens. I am not the teacher of this school. I am a fellow student, here to learn alongside you and from you. Together, we will cover a lot of information that doesn't really matter, but will remind us of the days of stalking MySpace channels and getting lost in chat rooms. So connect your dial up, turn on your webcam, and let's go to School of Emo. Welcome back to School of Emo. Before we get into today's episode about the legendary Silverstein, we have to have an update on the Ego Night, Hayley Williams, Ego, Death of a Bachelorette Party opening party at local record stores. I went to the one in Nashville here at Grimey's, a record store that is very well connected to Paramore and Hayley. They've done so many events together. Hayley sent them records during COVID, like signed to sell and keep them afloat. They do record store day every year, and Paramore has done like pop-up shows in the parking lot for them. So I was very hopeful that that would be my chance to be in the room with Hayley Williams once again and maybe meet her. She did not show up to ours, sadly. She did show up to one in LA. Apparently, maybe she lives in LA now and she's doing the LA thing, which is great. Very jealous of the people that got to meet her there. But honestly, probably for the best. Our event, it was so small and they did a good job. We had iced orange juice like serving. They could spike it if you want. You could buy the album. We were able to go ahead and get it with a Tennessee variant, which was really fun. And they had kind of a welcome video from Hayley that every Ego Night got. And then they had kind of like a karaoke thing set up. So as they played the album, the lyrics were on the screen. The downside of our event is that the lyrics did not match up with the music. So that was kind of weird. And the timing they didn't start early enough. So they didn't even get through the full album. They did have to like stop it at a certain point and then just share Showbiz, the new song. And so it was just very awkward, not the best versus some that I've seen internationally and even throughout the US where people are dancing and singing and doing actual karaoke. Like they looked so much more fun. So if you got to go to one of those Ego Nights, I am jealous and I hope you had a great time. We had a good time anyways and enjoyed getting to eat some pizza in the parking lot and enjoy the album, buy it, and have it in our home. So Ego Death of a Bachelorette Party was a success. But aside from that experience and like the legends that Paramore are and Hayley Williams is within the emo scene, today we're going to talk about a band that has been such a big cornerstone and like solid voice within this space over many, many, many years and I guess technically decades. And that is Silverstein. They're also going to be my next emo focused concert on the docket. Which we will get to at the end, but very excited to talk about them today. I am familiar with some of Silverstein's kind of top songs, obviously know who they are and have heard some of the big hits, but I've never done a huge deep dive into them. I didn't follow them early on in their career. They've never been like a top of mind band for me. And so it's been really fun to learn more about them. I hope you enjoy that. And if you love Silverstein, I hope that you take a moment, go to YouTube in the comments, add some of your thoughts and perspectives and your stories, because that's going to make the episode and all of this even better. So we actually get to go to an area we have not gone to before in any of our episodes that I can remember. Nope, we haven't done this. We're going to Canada and we're going back to 2000 in Burlington, Ontario. And this was the height of the emo second wave, what was happening here in the US, but it was also starting to build in Canada and up north. And so we have the band forming when Shane Told, who'd been playing in a pop punk band called the Jerk Circus, decided to try something a bit heavier, move into that kind of post-hardcore space, and teamed up with Josh Bradford, Paul Kohler, Richard McWalter, and Bill Hamilton to create something to blend that emotional weight of emo with the aggression of hardcore, what we consider to be emo core. In an interview in 2007, Shane said, kind of reflecting on the start of the band, we just wanted to write something that felt raw. Like we were listening to bands like Grade and Thursday, and we thought, what if we made something like that, but our own? So the name Silverstein was actually a nod to the poet and author Shel Silverstein. And it was meant to showcase the emotional, kind of dark storytelling roots that they wanted to be as a definition of their band. And they wanted to be known for, which, spoiler alert, became true. So in 2002, they released their first EP, Summer's Stellar Gaze, which helped with that local scene in Ontario and kind of making waves, giving themselves a little bit of a local platform. And then their next EP, When the Shadows Beam, got noticed by Victory Records and earned them their first record deal. Now, if you remember, this was the same label that helped explode Thursday, Taking Back Sunday, and even Hawthorne Heights. So a very strong kind of central label in the scene in the early 2000s. So perfectly placed and match for what would follow. So that gave us the first full-length debut album in 2003, very quickly, called When Broken is Easily Fixed. This was perfectly timed for this third wave of emo, and emo kids really leaned into it because it had that perfect, vulnerable, screaming, kind of angsty, like very raw, emotion filled sound. This is where they were balancing heavy breakdowns, melodic vulnerability, the combo that they would be known for 25 years now. And then for many fans, this was their first introduction to Shane Told, and now what we consider to be kind of an iconic move between a guttural scream and melodic vocal within a single breath. So the skill set of him as a frontman and a vocalist within this genre, whatever we wanted to call it. This also came with their first and their hottest track at the time, Smashed into Pieces. So getting into those lyrics. Never again, I'll slit my throat with the knife I pulled out of my spine. Maybe when you find out that I'm dead, you'll realize what you did to me. And if my lungs still let me breathe, would you be there for me? If I can make myself believe, I'll give you back what you took away. No, I won't let it go. Douse myself in gasoline. So don't save me when you come up into the fire. I'd rather die than have to see your smile. And if my lungs still let me breathe, would you be there for me? If I can make myself believe, I'll give you back what you took away. You made me swear, you made me swear. I can't sleep. Realize all these things that you took from me. Smash my heart into dust. Suffocate my mind. Tear at me from inside. Smash apart what you created. How can I ever stop you from crushing my soul? It was yours to begin with. And if my lungs still let me breathe, would you be there for me? If I can make myself believe, I'll give you back what you took away. Many critics with this first album said that this was Canada's answer to Thursday. But fans quickly realized that Silverstein was not just following trends or mimicking the biggest bands of this time and in this space. They were defining their own lane and creating something that was deeply emo while also still being deeply unique and new to the scene. Shane told in the clip about the early album, said, we didn't have the tech back then to fake it. Everything you hear is me screaming in a booth for hours until it worked. And this was a response to some of the critics and even some fans that thought that the screams on the album were digitally layered, but he confirmed that he tracked them live start to finish in one take. So again, raw emotional vulnerability. 2 years later, so 2005, we got the next album that really started changing things for the band, and that is Discovering the Waterfront. This is where we got the songs Smile in Your Sleep, My Heroine, Call It Karma. And this is where the band began to find a little bit more balance in their sound and in what they would be known for kind of their DNA. So that emotional storytelling, polished production, heartbreak anthems. And it was the first time where the sound of the music, the lyrics, kind of that whole combo held up just as much as the screams. So it wasn't just this kind of anthemic, emotional, like kind of screaming type of album, but it was something that was also had a lot more depth to it and connected in that depth, which reflected in the success because this record did hit number 34 in the Billboard 200 and led to this Canadian band leaving Canada and touring the world, which again was perfectly timed with this second wave and that like height of emo in that mid early like 2000s. So My Heroine quickly became the anthem of the tour and of this time, continues to be one of their top songs ever. So we have to read those lyrics. The drugs begin to peak. A smile of joy arrives in me, but sedation changes to panic and nausea, and breath starts to shorten and heartbeats pound softer. You won't try to save me. You just want to hurt me and leave me desperate. You taught my heart a sense I never knew I had. I can't forget the times that I was lost and depressed from the awful truth. How do you do it? You're my heroine. You won't leave me alone. Chisel my heart out of stone. I give in every time. You taught my heart a sense I never knew I had. I can't forget the times that I was lost and depressed from the awful truth. How do you do it? You're my heroine. I bet you laugh at the thought of thinking for myself. I bet you believe that I'm better off with you than someone else. Your face arrives again. I hope I had become surreal, but under your covers, more torture than pleasure, and just past your lips, there's more anger than laughter. Not now or forever will I ever change you. I know that to go on, I'll break you, my habit. You taught my heart a sense I never knew I had. I can't forget the times that I was lost and depressed from the awful truth. How do you do it? You're my heroine, but I will save myself. In addition to My Heroine, we also got anthems like Your Sword versus My Dagger and Smile in Your Sleep. And it became the emo breakup album for an entire generation. Like these were the songs that millennials were screaming to and feeling so deeply with those first kind of experiences of heartbreak and loss and desire for connection and lost connection. Fans began to share stories of screaming the lyrics in their cars, bedrooms, and at Warped Tour because they weren't just songs. They were considered therapy and brought, again, a group of people together, which is so perfectly emo. In an alternative press interview in 2005, Shane Told said, that record came from a really personal place. I was struggling with relationships, mental health, and faith. People resonated with that honesty, and that's still what drives us. Emotional roots, very Thursday-like, for sure. So a couple of years later, 2007, we move from this massive success of discovering the waterfront. And in that pressure, they released Arrivals and Departures, which was a darker, more polished record that leaned more heavily into post-hardcore. And I find this so interesting because at this time, a lot of these bands, right, because we're kind of at that height, starting to sort of dip in that kind of big height of emo, a lot of bands began to move into mainstream around this time, right? This is where kind of the MTV, TRLs, like the TV space was a lot bigger. Radio was a lot bigger for this genre. And so we see a lot of bands kind of move away from the hardcore sound and into more mainstream, more radio friendly, more palatable sounds. But Silverstein kind of did a little bit of a different switch here, and they moved even deeper into the hardcore space. But like other bands shifting and changing, and after really all of our bands, after their huge, huge album and some of their biggest hits, fans were not always on board. And it was very much a you love it or you don't type of album. Some fans felt that it strayed a little bit from their emotional core, while others saw it as an evolution that was still deeply tied to their roots. Josh Bradford in 2008 in an interview said, we were burned out, touring nonstop, trying to please everyone. It was tough to find our footing. But despite mixed reviews, we still got songs like Still Dreaming, If You Could See My Soul, which remain to be some pretty solid, iconic singles from them and staples whenever they tour, even today. But it was considered a transitional era for the band and led into some of the next kind of changes and explorations that the band went through, which hit in 2009 with one of their most ambitious emo concept albums ever, A Shipwreck in the Sand. So they kind of followed a little bit of the kind of MCR space and even like Panic at the Disco, sort of the almost more, very much more storytelling, almost more operatic, if that makes sense, or theatrical. Like there was a different storyline in it, and the way that the songs are written are tied to a storyline and kind of this alternate universe or alternate place. Like they were building worlds, which was new for this band, not necessarily new in the scene. And so with A Shipwreck in the Sand, it was a concept album that tells two intertwined stories. The first being a literal narrative about a ship's crew that revolts against their captain when their quest for new land becomes futile. And then the second storyline, which is more direct, is about a man who, driven by his wife's infidelity with his best friend, sets his house on fire with them inside, only to then regret it and try to save them. So they're using the shipwreck as a metaphor for the breakdown of trust and the chaos that results, really leaning into the themes of betrayal and loss. So the structure of the album is that it has these four main chapters which are different aspects of the story. The first is It Burns Within Us All, Liars, Cheaters, and Thieves, Fight Fire with Fire, and then Death and Taxes. So that second chapter is where they were focusing on the man's anger and his wife's infidelity, like chapter one being more of the shipwreck, and then that frustration, which also kind of leaned into his frustrations with like political and social issues, kind of tying to, again, very Thursday-like. Chapter three included that more impulsive act of setting the house on fire. So the reaction to that anger and frustration. And then the fourth chapter really leaned more into the trying to save them and like the regret of it. And so the larger themes are really about societal issues, betrayal, personal loss, and how these can all be influenced by economic climate and the social issues of the time. So there's a lot happening, kind of a lot of what we're seeing even in our world today, and like how that can kind of drive someone to like the furthest depths of what they're feeling and their reactions, almost a little bit maniacal, if that makes sense. And so at the end of the story, we got the end. And I do want to share those lyrics. First time we met, face became etched in my mind. You were the sun. I was the one who worshiped you. My hands were your guns. Your eyes were my nerve. And I knew you could never love me. I had so much sorrow inside, but you could never reach. But can I still keep a place in your heart? You broke my heart. You promised me the moon and stars. I fell for your dreams. I fell for your lies. There was no other way. You know, I tried, and I knew you could never love me. I had so much sorrow inside. You could never reach, but can I still keep a place in your heart? There is something I want you to know. I think you know exactly what it is. I didn't want to save you. I didn't want to save you. I set our house on fire to watch it burn, but I couldn't just leave you, and I knew you could never love me. I had so much sorrow inside. You could never reach. But I'll ask you this, will you still miss me? Do you love me? Fate fills the sky. We'll both die tonight. Hands from the sky, spot us a one lifeline as we follow the light. Shane told in a 2009 interview, said, we wanted to write something that felt cinematic, like if you closed your eyes, you could see it. And it worked. The album reminded fans that Silverstein wasn't just a screamo band, they were also storytellers, and they were able to build these worlds and kind of connect not only from their personal experiences, but in more of kind of this layered cinematic way that a lot of bands were also doing around the time. So another transition for the band was in 2010, they left Victory Records after a long-term relationship to then pursue new opportunities and release new music. The specific details around this were not detailed or clear with the initial announcement, but the band members did express excitement for their future after the departure. And then they were signed to Hopeless Records for a period and then went on to be with UNFD. With the departure and kind of moving to Hopeless Records, they released Rescue in 2011, which was more of a return to their melodic roots. And then they released Short Songs in 2012, which was exactly what it sounds like, 22 tracks, all under 90 seconds, which was more of a love letter to punk rock and DIY ethics, very much more poetic. So from the Short Songs record, leaning into the poems, we're going to go through SOS. And I can't protect this anymore. I can't reflect this light that you shine on me. So I'm giving up, not giving in. I'm selling out, not selling in. Judge for what I've done, not who I am. So take your shot now. So take your swing. Start a fight because you know you will win. A perfect storm touches down in your head. You think you found where the bodies are buried, but you could never dig them up. This is forever. So take your shot now. So take your swing. Build a fight because you know you will win. You can't expect me to forget. This is forever. This is forever. You can't expect me to just accept the lies you've said. This is forever. This is forever. I won't be here for you with forgiveness. We can't recover. So take your shot now. So take your swing. Start a fight because you know you will win. So take your shot now. So take your swing. Start a fight now because you know you will win. After that, in 2013, we got This Is How the Wind Shifts, which was a concept album with songs that mirrored each other lyrically and thematically. And fans hailed this as one of their most creative works. So again, a lot of experimentation during this time. So looking at this album, they had the duality of how one single event can change a life. So each of the first 7 songs has a corresponding parallel track on the second half of the album that tells the same story from a different perspective, which kind of explores this idea that things could have happened in a different way and sort of the what ifs or parallel universes. And even the title of the album kind of showcases these two different worlds in the duality. So This Is How encompasses the first 7 songs. The World Shifts encompasses the different outcomes, and the last 7 songs, they're parallel songs. From this album, we got Massachusetts, and I want to read through those lyrics as a favorite. I think lyrics for this band matter so much because they're so strongly lyrical. So I hope you're enjoying those as much as I am. She's cutting out the bruises, forgetting her excuses for being here again. With a suitcase packed and waiting by the door in her head, convinced herself she hasn't lost enough to quit. But tonight she lays here thinking, what if I just left in the middle of the night back to California and never look back? She'll fantasize about it every single day, but she can't find it in her heart to run away. And no one's listening, with Northern Massachusetts on his knees to stay. He's begging, please, oh baby, please, I can explain. It won't happen again. He's putting out the fires and he's making her believe he's really changed this time. But it's obvious it's just another line, lapse and relapse. And again, she lays behind him thinking, I'll pretend in the middle of the night. My eyes are closed, I'm sleeping, but I won't come back. She'll fantasize about it every single day, but she can't find it in her heart to run away. And no one's listening, with Northern Massachusetts on his knees to stay. He's begging, please, oh baby, please, I can explain. It won't happen again. It won't happen again. How long can this last? The final straw was the hospital. At least she told herself that. But she just can't find the strength to end it. I just left in the middle of the night. Back to California. I'll never look back. She'll fantasize about it every single day, but she can't find it in her heart to run away. With Northern Massachusetts on his knees to stay, he's begging, please, oh baby, please, I can explain. It won't happen again. It won't happen again. In 2013, Shane said, we wrote it like 2 halves of a book where each song had a partner on the other side. And that is how it was received. So again, showcasing a lot of uniqueness, a lot of creativity, especially in the time again, this is when emo and this third wave really took a dip and a bit of a break in a way, like there wasn't a lot of traction. And so to continue to be creative and explore new ways to put out music and new ways to write songs and all of that around this time was really really impressive. They didn't just lean on back on the old stuff. They didn't break up, they kind of stuck with it. And then so in 2015, we got I'm Alive in Everything I Touch, which was more exploration, especially more of a moodier space, but with very clean production. So, kind of blending the two together really well. Each song on this album represented a city, and the album told stories of longing and loss tied to the physical places, really inspired by their time touring and being on the road. So it was still kind of a concept album, but the blend of that kind of concept storytelling with personal experiences and that personal vulnerability, kind of putting those together, and showcased a lot of maturity for the band, showing more maturity and kind of growing their experiences growing up emotionally and also musically with that kind of more cleaner sound and kind of stronger musicality across the board. So then we got Dead Reflection in 2017. And this is where Shane Told began to open up a lot more about his struggles with depression and addiction. And this album reflected that kind of darkness in his own experiences a lot more. But even with that, Silverstein never lost their melodic core. So there was still a lot of beauty intertwined within these songs, bringing us a great song, The Afterglow. So those lyrics. I can see the sunset just inside of your bedroom. I know it's too soon to let it go. Everything you said echoing in my head into the afterglow. Streetlights swaying in the wind at night, the freeways feeling like a paradise. No, time won't change it, can't erase it. It's a long drive home. We can pass the time by counting all the stars and the satellites. No, time won't change it, can't erase it. I wanted you to know. I can see the sunset just inside of your bedroom. I know it's too soon to let it go. Everything you said echoing in my head into the afterglow. I remember that night like it was the first time, two of us caught in the undertow. Everything you said echoing in my head back and forth into the afterglow. I took a beating last time we talked, still adding up the cost of the cheap shots. No, time won't change it, can't erase it. Now I'm carving our names in the tabletop, heartbreak in a St. Louis parking lot. No, time won't change it, can't erase it. I don't want you back. It's just that I wanted you to know. I can see the sunset just inside of your bedroom. I know it's too soon to let it go. Everything you said, echoing in my head into the afterglow. I remember that night like it was the first time, two of us caught in the undertow. Everything you said, echoing in my head, back and forth into the afterglow. I don't want you back. It's just that I wanted you to know. You still run through my head, but I will ride alone. I can see the sunset just inside of your bedroom. I know it's too soon to let it go. Everything you said, echoing in my head into the afterglow. I remember that night like it was the first time, two of us caught in the undertow. Everything you said, echoing in my head, back and forth into the afterglow. In 2020, a few years later, they released A Beautiful Place to Drown, which was considered to be kind of a career highlight because they had guest appearances like Aaron Gillespie from Under Oath and Princess Nokia. This did hit the top 10 on Billboard's rock chart, which was a testament to the band that had outlasted most of their peers. They had not broken up around this time. They got through that big dip and they were leading into kind of the start of this sort of revival of emo. But they were still, again, being creative, putting out new things, not really, like, yes, changing their sound, but not completely changing who they were, which again is very unique of the bands that have lasted. And the newer albums are showcasing that and have had some success, maybe not as much as some of the earlier albums, but still some success in the kind of that whole tumultuous time and that people were going through. So this did give us the hit Infinite. More lyrics. I want to breathe like I'm brand new. Why can't I feel like I'm supposed to? Don't feel the pressure. I do. Tell me this will end soon. My mind's running away a mile a minute, can't shake it off. A free fall, I give anything to make it stop. How can I be an optimist when all this feels infinite? When the darkness finds me, all this feels infinite. And the pain is blinding, all this feels infinite. It's infinite. I got to find some way to relate. I drew a line so I could see straight, erase every lie and half truth, anything I have to. My mind's running away a mile a minute, can't shake it off. 6 feet down, buried in my own thoughts. How can I be an optimist when this feels infinite? When the darkness finds me, all this feels infinite. And the pain is blinding, all this feels infinite. It's infinite. When the darkness finds me and I follow blindly, how can I keep it together when all this feels infinite? It's infinite. 20 years in, Silverstein still not slowing down. They released in 2022 Misery Made Me, which leaned more into this kind of heavier post hardcore and a little bit of modern metal influences, which kind of put them in the space, kind of competing, if you will, with bands like Holding Absence and Spirit Box, kind of a little bit of a shift away from just post hardcore emo, more into metal. As Shane told in 2022, said, the emotion is the same, it's just louder now. So a little bit of a different sound. Some of the fans have called it more of a return to form, blending that early intensity with the polish of their later work. So really enjoying this shift. And then in 2025, they released their latest album this year, Pink Moon. So far, only 8 songs, but continuing some features with bands like Dayseeker and even emo female voice, Cassidy Pope. And this album was not necessarily a concept album, but the name of it comes from a pink moon that the band witnessed while they were recording in Joshua Tree, and became kind of a source of inspiration for the album's atmosphere, its themes of renewal and collision between the night and day, and kind of bringing that together. And this is the second half of their 25th anniversary double album, the first half being Anti Bloom, which was kind of recorded during a creative period in the desert. So they're blending these together a little bit more to celebrate the 25 years as a band. And then one of the biggest songs is Drain the Blood. Not going to read those lyrics, but it is different. It is heavier, but it's also catchier. Something that I feel like kind of is a bit more in that kind of melodic post metal, new metal, maybe. Some of you may be able to describe that genre even better. So, where are they now? They're still going. They are 25 years in, and they have continued to put out music. They continue to stick together, and they've had about the same lineup they've had for about a decade. So there's been some changes, but not too many. Shane told Josh Bradford, Paul Kohler, Billy Hamilton, and then Paul Mark Russo. That's kind of their lineup of the past 10 years. And they've become kind of a rare band in the emo space that they were able to explode during that third wave boom, and they've been able to thrive and stay strong beyond it, which not a lot of bands have been able to do. A lot of bands took a big break and then came back for kind of this revival, whereas Silverstein has been sort of sticking with it and holding true to it. They've built a fan base that spans generations, and they've given fans so many different layers of themselves. So there's a little bit of something for everyone, depending on what you're really drawn to within this huge umbrella of a scene that exists today. They are also touring strong, and starting this week is their 25th anniversary tour with Thursday. They're also going to be on the Emos Not Dead cruise. I did not want to go see another band that I'm going to see on the cruise. Like, I was looking forward to them already, but Thursday is at the top of my list. And so I will be going to their show in Nashville next month, just a few weeks away. And I am so excited to see Thursday. Yes, but I'm also really excited to see Thursday now after digging into some of these lyrics. Like, I obviously love some of the hits, but I think leaning into like some of the other songs throughout the different albums, I'm sure they'll be pulling from all of those archives as they celebrate their entire career and even what they are newly promoting, but very exciting. So if you also really like them and you were not aware, check out those tour dates and see if you can find a show in your area. It was actually very well priced here in Nashville. So something that you might be able to see more accessibly and scream all the lyrics that remind you of your youth. So that's your homework this week. Go back, read the lyrics, dive in which album stuck out to you, maybe a concept album, and that exploration is something that you want. Maybe it's the heavier stuff of leaning into some depression and loneliness and loss that you felt. Maybe you want that teenage kind of angst and heartbreak again. Whatever it is, find an album, listen to it on repeat, read some of the lyrics, scream your little heart out. And I will see you back here next week for our next episode.